Jett Luchanko traded from Guelph to Brantford. What does this mean for the Flyers' 2024 13th overall pick? We're going to talk about it right here on the Shootout. Jett Luchanko was sent from the Guelph Storm to the OHL's Brantford Bulldogs. The way I heard about this trade was listening to Jeff Marrick's show today, and he called the Bulldogs more of a traveling all-star team now than an actual OHL team. I think they're 18-0-5. They are yet to lose in regulation this year, and just added the 2024 13th overall pick to the mix. Jett Luchanko has been productive since heading back to the OHL. He played 11 games for Guelph, 2 goals, 15 assists, Charlie. So he's clearly that playmaker we've been talking about. Clearly needs to work on the willingness and ability to shoot a little bit more, and perhaps with teammates setting him up rather than him doing all the table setting, he'll have a little bit more of that opportunity with Brantford. But what was your immediate reaction to this one?
Yeah, this is a dramatic improvement in terms of team quality. And I want to make it clear that Guelph last year was horrific.
Yeah, they're 500 this year. They're 11-11-2.
They're better. Like last year, they were, I believe, 19th out of 20 teams in the OHL in terms of record. This year, they're tied for 13th out of 20 teams in terms of point percentage. So they are better. They're not as bad, but they're still not good. And compare that to Brantford. So you mentioned Brantford's record. They've yet to lose a game in regulation, but they could theoretically be a great defensive team, and that's how they could be winning their games. Okay, I'll give you this. Guelph, aside from Jett Luchanko, has 0 players. Jett Luchanko is the only guy who is point per game or above this season. 0 guys. Brantford has 6, and that's not including Luchanko, who will be the 7th. Six. So
7 guys.
Yeah, and we're talking about some really good players. I mean, Jake O'Brien's the top guy. He was a guy who, I really liked as a potential option for the Flyers at number 6 in the 2025 NHL draft. He's leading the entire OHL in scoring. He's got 40 points in 21 games. So Luchanko will be below him on the depth chart because O'Brien's a center. Luchanko is also a center. Can't imagine they'll play on the same line at even strength. But there's a ton of other really talented players he could play with at even strength if he's going to serve as the 2C, which is what I expect him to do. And while it's unclear which power play unit he's going to be on, presumably he'll at least get some time with O'Brien, who, as we remember from previewing the draft this past summer, one of the, if not the best power play guy in that entire draft. So there's going to be a real opportunity for Luchanko to play with some seriously talented scorers in Brantford.
It's got to be a lot of fun to be one of the trigger men on Brantford and think, even if I'm not with Jake O'Brien, I don't know. Jett Luchanko's played 8 NHL games already. He's got a bunch of assists this year. That has to be exciting. My thought on what this could mean for the Flyers and Jett Luchanko is I don't know if we're going to be seeing him at the end of the season, either in the A or NHL, Charlie. The OHL regular season ends March 22nd. Flyers, I think, finish up like April 14th or something. So there's a little bit of that time. But then, of course, there's the OHL playoffs. And then, of course, what Brantford is loading up for real, though. It's the Memorial Cup, which runs May 21st to the 31st. So the Flyers would have to, go to the Stanley Cup final if Brantford makes it through the OHL playoffs, wins the OHL championship, and then moves on to the Memorial Cup. It could be a long, long time. And when you look at a team that 18-0-5, you got to believe they're the favorites at this point to win the OHL. They haven't lost in regulation yet.
Yeah, and the other thing it may take out of the mix, because, look, was there a chance he was going to get in a game or two for the Flyers at the end of the year? Yeah, maybe. But I thought the more likely scenario was he was going to do what he did last year.
Go to the Phantoms.
Join the Phantoms. He played in the playoffs for the Phantoms, really impressed, especially in the playoffs, played well against Hershey. That might be out of the realm of possibility now. Now, not necessarily. Maybe Brantford gets upset in round 2 of the OHL playoffs. They're done by the beginning of May. Phantoms are pretty good this year. Maybe they go on a long run in the Calder Cup playoffs, but it does make it less likely that Luchanko is going to get time with the Phantoms or the Flyers for that matter. Seems like this sets him up for, his next professional game is likely going to be next season when he officially turns pro. And that's not the worst thing. Not the worst thing for Jett Luchanko to get an opportunity to play with real talent for the rest of the season and then hopefully go on a long playoff run, face off against other top-tier OHL and CHL teams, and hopefully develop his offensive skill set more. It's what everyone wanted. This is what everyone wanted. You know, the whole topic of conversation in camp was, well, you don't want to send him back to Guelph. Well, now he's not in Guelph. Now he's playing for a legitimately good team, so that's not an issue anymore.
We made the comment, like, when he's getting into just as many games in the NHL once the season starts as last year, like, do you think they're just holding him hostage from Guelph until they're like, trade him, or we're not sending him back to you? Like, we were wondering if that was the case, and they'd already named another captain after he had made the team. So it just seemed like a situation that was going to give it a certain point. And of course, Guelph is hosting the Memorial Cup next year.
I think that was the finals thing.
So they're like, we're loading up for next year.
Yeah, because you look at it, as I said, they're better this year. They were around that like 12th, 13th range. They could have battled for a playoff spot if they really wanted to. You know, maybe you sneak in, you get some playoff revenue, you get the fans a little excited. But now that they have the Memorial Cup in 2027, they get the automatic bid. They're going to be in that 4-team tournament. And Luchanko's never going to be a part of that.
No.
Because he was turning pro regardless of how this year goes. So now it's like, all right, well, we have a chance to potentially win the CHL championship. Not this season, but next season. Let's use Luchanko to get assets to maybe have a better chance of competing in that tournament. It's no surprise to me, no coincidence in my mind that, you know, 4 days after they announce that they got the 2027 Memorial Cup, they make this trade and they get assets for Luchanko. I feel like those two are definitely related.
Now, this also creates the opportunity just for Luchanko's experience. He played in the Calder Cup playoffs last year. Now he has an opportunity to go to World Juniors, as we've talked about, and then play big games against players at his own age level. You know, he's still 19 years old, and so he'll get a chance to go to the OHL, hopefully the OHL playoffs, and then hopefully the Memorial Cup as well, just to gain a little bit more experience and hopefully start potting some goals, Charlie, because, listen, the numbers overall are good, but if you add a couple goals in there, it's, ooh, he's putting up seriously good numbers. So maybe that will be the case. Now, of course, the conversation is like, yeah, but he's getting carried by an all-star team. So we'll have to wait.
There's
for that.
always, if people want to denigrate Jett Luchanko, they will always find ways to denigrate Jett Luchanko. This is a good thing for Jett Luchanko. Another thing we didn't mention but is important. The coach of the Brantford Bulldogs, Jay McKee, he was a guy who, according to Scott Wheeler, was well into the Flyers head coaching process, got a full interview with Danny Briere and Keith Jones this past summer. They know him well. He's a former teammate of Danny Briere.
2 or 3 years
from
in
back
Buffalo,
in the Buffalo days, so they know each other well. Number one, it shows that the Flyers, trust this guy to coach him well. But number two, and just as important, just as the way it was with London with the Hunters, with Keith Jones knowing the Hunters very well, this gives Danny Briere someone that he's got on speed dial that, like, hey, just want to check in. How's my boy doing? What's he like? Things like that. So I think this is a good fit for the Flyers specifically. It would be a good fit for him to go anywhere that was more talented than Guelph, but it's a good fit, especially given the fact that Brantford's coached by someone that Briere has a very good relationship with.
All right, that is the shootout. Jett Luchanko sent from Guelph to Brantford. He now has a chance to move on and play in the playoffs this season, maybe even the Memorial Cup. Maybe that means we don't get to see him at the end of this year, but for his overall experience and getting to play with some better teammates, seems good. All right, I am Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. This is the shootout. Thank you, Brenna. Be excellent to each other.